You're listening to the HFPA in Conversation with Sia.
Hello, my name is Bárbara de Oliveira Pinto. Today in HFPA in Conversation, we have the pleasure to welcome Sia, who has captivated the world with her music and artistic endeavors and is proving to be unstoppable. Hello, Sia. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much. Thank you for accepting this invitation. It's really a pleasure for us to have you here and pursue a talk. And my first question would be, when did you find out you had a very peculiar and strong singing voice? Do you remember that moment?
I think it was when people started shushing me in school.
Okay. How old were you? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was about 15 when people started shushing me. And I thought, oh, okay. So I wouldn't sing anymore out loud in class, but I'd still sing at the bus stop or on the bus or, at home, or if I was at work behind the bar, I would sing along to things. Or, I had so many different jobs. I was a waitress and a bartender and, so I ended up eventually people were telling me, oh, you have a good voice. It went from shush to you have a good voice. And so one day I bumped into some friends and they were starting a band. And I said, do you need a singer? And they said, are you one? And I was like, yeah, yes. And they said, okay, come to this rehearsal. And next thing you know, I was a singer.
Incredible. So that's interesting. So you started the career as a singer. I believe you're talking about the jazz band you started, the Crisp in Australia, right?
Yeah, we were a jazz funk explosion.
But it all started out of a coincidence. So were you not really pursuing that job as a singer? Were you just wanting to do it just because at the time?
Yeah, not at all. I wanted to be an actor. And I feel very grateful that I fell into singing because it's a much easier job. And I think actors have it much, much harder. Much, much harder. They have to be away from home more. They have to wait around a lot more. The music industry versus the movie business is just glacial comparatively to the music business. Everything happens so slowly. I think I find it very frustrating to be an actor. So I'm very, very grateful that I accidentally became a singer. I had a family friend that said, if you want to make a living out of singing, then you need to start learning how to write songs, and you should write songs because it's the only growth industry in music is publishing. So I listened.
And how did you learn it? Did you learn it on your own? Did you take a course? What happened at that time?
No,
how did you start?
I worked with producers, and that means that they write, the music part, and I would write melodies over that and then write lyrics. And I guess in the beginning it was harder. I was slower. I was more self-conscious. And just the longer I did it, faster I became. And then when I got sober and decided I didn't want to really be an artist anymore because I had started to get a little tiny bit taste of fame, and I realized that it was not for me. It was like it gave me anxiety attacks to like meet everyone outside after the show and to sign autographs or to have paparazzi. It really affected me severely, and I now know that's because I have suffered from complex PTSD. But it was almost as soon as I decided to stop trying to be a cool songwriter and started just writing songs that were of a broad nature and writing for other people, writing for other artists, then suddenly I became more successful than ever. And that was when I had to decide how to put out an album where I didn't show my face, where I, and I guess that really, it was the only thing missing from show business was mystery. So I just happened to luck out in a corner of the market that wasn't being monopolized. And it blew up much, much bigger than any of us could have ever believed it would. Chandelier became, a much, much bigger song than any of us expected it to. And I think that has a lot to do with Maddie and her performance, and Ryan's choreography and the chemistry between the three of us. And that's why I've continued to work with Maddie and Ryan almost exclusively. Unless anything's too adult themed, then I don't use Maddie.
Mm-hmm. And Sia, you've touched on a lot of things that I'm very curious about, and one of them is the idea of the wig. The idea that I thought actually when you that image of you came out, I thought it was brilliant. I actually at the time had no idea it had to do with you trying to shy away from fame, but I thought it was aesthetically a brilliant idea. Thank you. I was wondering, which did it come from you? Did you have a team of advisors getting to that idea? What happened? How did it come about?
It was just me. I just, I think I ordered that blonde bob on Amazon or something. And then I took a picture of me standing in front of a black wall. And then I erased my face. And that was the cover of 1,000 Forms of Fear. That's exact. And it was a black wall opposite my laundry. I remember I was staring at a washing machine at the time. And and then just used my handwriting. And I've always been a bit of a DIYer.
Okay.
So some people would call that, like, I know that some people call it marketing genius, but for me, it was just literally a way out, a way to get out of a contract, deliver an album. That was the last of a contract that I was in, a publishing contract, so that I could negotiate a new and better deal, and how I could do it without compromising my newfound serenity and sobriety. And, because I had realized that the business for me, my business, the way that I had run my business, it wasn't healthy for me. And all of the travel wasn't good for me personally, and that I needed more routine. And I needed to just be in one place. And that's why I decided to try and not do much touring and try and not do much promo and try and write for other people as much as possible, and just put out music as opposed to promote music.
It's interesting. I've heard a lot of very successful artists already mention that sometimes today it's not just necessary to be an extremely soulful and interesting artist. You also have to have a little bit of a knack for business. Do you agree with that or not at all?
100%. You have to have an angle. Yeah. You have to have an angle. You don't necessarily need a knack for business, but you have to have an angle, or you have to have a manager that has an angle and that has a creative mind, as well as a strategic mind. And that's quite rare to come across. So I feel really lucky because I love management. They have been really supportive. They understand that for an artist to be productive, they have to be happy. So they have tried to, they have not even tried, they have negotiated all of the most unheard of record deals and movie deals ever created, just to help me protect my serenity.
Yeah. And you mentioned before that you were in a time of PTSD, and that it was something you had to deal with. What was the event that triggered it?
There's actually a lot of events. The ones that I'm willing to talk about were I witnessed a murder, and I witnessed the beating of a man and I tried to help, and I called 911, and I tried to help save his life, and he later died. And the other one was I lived upstairs from somebody who was mentally ill with schizophrenia, and he was not taking his medication, and he wanted to be my friend. And I got scared, and I called the police, and they came, they left, and I saw him. Was looking out the window because I was scared, because I just felt bad because they had said to him that he needed to have better boundaries and not come knocking up on my door, and that, and I was horrified because I just didn't want him to even know that it was me that had called, because I was worried about him. I'd actually called a bunch of mental health places first, and they said, you have to call 911, you have to call an ambulance and the police. And anyway, he walked out the door and walked in front of a train. So that was pretty horrible. And and then there's just some developmental trauma, just that, I don't really want to go into.
Okay.
Yeah, just because
okay.
I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Absolutely. But so that psychological journey for you, I mean, it must have been, it's an incredible arc. What was the thing that you consider helped you the most to achieve now what you have achieved today?
I think my friendships, probably my friendship with Dallas Clayton is the most meaningful. He's seen me through every difficult period. And then also with my day-to-day manager, David Russell, who's been with me for 15 years. I think, because I have gone through periods where I've been very mentally ill. And I think I know if they hadn't been around, I would have committed suicide.
And so it was that strength you had with connections, close connections, that made you overcome it and achieve this security that I think you have in artistry.
And I won't discount, and I'm not a drug pusher, but I won't discount that I needed medical intervention as well. So I needed Prozac. And also occasionally I take anti-anxieties or propranolol, which is a heart medication that slows your heart rate. So I just to avoid panic attacks or to treat panic attacks, I have needed medical intervention. But the Prozac actually was what really interrupted the feedback loop of suicidal ideation that I was having. It was the love of all my friends. But also I realized that when you have PTSD, your brain is broken, the frontal cortex is broken, and that Prozac can really intercept that feedback loop. And within 6 days, I wasn't having the same suicidal ideation. So I do believe that that was Prozac related.
I mean, after coming around from an experience like that and coming away on the other side, is there a sense of pride that you also feel, of achievement that maybe you haven't achieved with anything else? Or
I really felt really proud, because I've been working to become secure using like a form of therapy called idealized parent figure protocol, which and that's through meditation protocols, and in attachment repair for attachment injury, which is basically attachment injuries that happen in the first 3 years of your life that will affect, usually it means anyone who's an addict has an attachment injury, and they were usually caused in the first 3 years of their life, and that's what creates an addict, and that's now scientifically proven. So I've been working with different scientists and different researchers and meditation teachers to try and what's called earn secure attachment. And I really thought I had, and then I hit a bit of a roadblock recently and realized I've had to accept humbly that I'm still not there. Yeah, so I'm still working on it.
But I mean, it's I really do believe it's amazing, your journey and the way you share it. I've just ended up learning a lot with you now, and it's very interesting. But that makes me curious. Is apart from all the films, the music, and everything that you're doing artistically, are you also very connected to science? And is it there something you want to participate in and have an active voice at?
Yes, attachment theory.
Mm-hmm.
It's a psychology that was only really recognized in 1984, but it was a strange situation. It was, I think, was in the 60s, and then it was sort of discovered by someone called John Bowlby. But I'm very, very interested in the science of attachment theory and addiction. So that's that's what I do in my geek time.
And Sia, now going back to your artistic path, I mean, you've collaborated with a lot of artists that we all know of. But I wanted to single out a comment by Britney Spears and she said, I fell in love with the way Sia looks at life. And if you could describe the way you look at life, how would it be? And how would you describe it so that we understand what she wanted to say?
I guess what I definitely try to do is, whoever God is to you, whoever God is, whether God is God or the universe or Jesus Christ or Allah or Buddha or whatever, whoever God is to you. For me, I guess I'm a polytheist, so I take bits of different religions that I like and think are amazing, and discard what I think is fear-based or judgmental. But what I tend to do is I try to align my will with God's, with, whoever God is to you or the universes. So instead of trying to put a square peg into a round hole, I try to, just look for the square peg. I look for the square hole. I try to look for the square hole, or I try and look for the round peg. I'm never trying to force a situation that doesn't come naturally, because then I believe that it's not really God's will. Even as simple as making this movie, we lost a location one day, and for some directors that's so stressful. But for me, I was like, well, I know we'll find another location, because that's what we have location, finders for, and producers and all these other people that are on the crew's list, on the crew. That's their job, and they're going to do it because they're amazing at it. They've done it before and they'll do it again. And then we find another location, and I just have to align my will with God's and say, that was always meant to be the location. And some people have a difficult time. They get really fixed on one idea. But I believe that many ideas can be right. Many ideas can, that there is no wrong idea, really.
Interesting. And I know you've written songs in 14 minutes, in 30 minutes. I mean, namely, it's known that Rihanna's Diamond song that you wrote it in 14 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, do you a lot of people have called you a genius. Do you believe in that concept? Do you believe you are one?
What I like, well, I will answer you, but what I liked, the best response I ever got I wrote that in 14 minutes, was someone on Twitter wrote, "You can tell."
That's awesome. Well, I don't agree with that. I dance a lot with that music.
Well, lucky for me, I'm not very sensitive.
But since you mentioned that, Sia, I mean, how do you deal with criticism? Because
I'm sensitive in some ways and not sensitive in others. It's really interesting. I'm more, I think I care more about social repercussions, or being ostracized, or being misunderstood, or a deep need to be liked or loved. Whereas I don't care so much whether my music is liked or loved, but I want my intentions behind things to be truly understood. And when that doesn't happen, I'm very sensitive. I feel very sensitive. And but yeah, it's not, I don't mind if my art is, pissed on, but I just, it hurts me when my I guess my integrity is called into question, or my intentions are called into question. That's when I'm sensitive. But do I think I'm a genius? I know that I am not a genius. I am 1 point below genius. Best.
How did you measure that?
I think
did you measure that?
Once when I did was like, there was a 6-month period where I went Scientologist, and they make you do an IQ test. And at the time, I was 1 point below genius. Maybe I'm a genius now. Who knows?
Okay, maybe you work at it and then you become one. Maybe, right?
You never know. I like to think smarter and smarter and not dumber and dumber.
Right, exactly. And but it's interesting what you were focusing on before. You were saying that when your integrity is at stake and your intention, then that's something that can bother you and touches you. And that, of course, it's now we can talk a little bit about the movie that you're launching, Music. And there are a little bit of a controversy about it because of the casting.
Yeah.
Is that criticism fair in your opinion, or not at all?
Yes and no. I think it is fair that I didn't think about, like if I had thought about, okay, I want to make a movie about a nonverbal teen on the spectrum. I could have made 50 different kinds of movies. And if I wanted to be more inclusive, I could have written a movie entirely around what was comfortable for the actor, the neuroatypical actor. It would have been an entirely different movie. But because I wasn't aware of ableism, I hadn't thought about it deeply enough. I feel bad. And also because I love working with Maddie so much, I did realize after I'd written the movie and I'd, had written it and with a Maddie in mind, that I needed to try to work with someone neuroatypical, and I did. And then their mum said it was too stressful for them, and so I listened to the mum and I went back to using Maddie, and so what I think is I think that I did so much research and I spoke to so many people in the community, but I'm guessing there are so many factions. It's like in the queer community, I dated a woman for 3.5 years, and I realized in that community, there's like 65 little small subcultures of the LGBTQ. There's another one now, IA. Community that all have differing opinions. And so I realized, in a way, I feel like I can't win. I couldn't have won. I could have if I'd made that movie that they wanted me to make, which is a movie that I catered to that neuroatypical actor. It wasn't the movie that I had in my mind's eye. It wasn't that. And so I wrote the movie first. If I had thought of casting a neuroatypical actor first, it was just the cart before the horse, basically. And so, yeah, I regret that I've hurt people's feelings, and I regret that that I might be ableist. I have to recognize I might be ableist. I have to recognize I might be racist. I might be nepotist. I have to recognize those things because a lot of us are all of those things subconsciously or consciously, and due to our conditioning and our ignorance. And so I learned a lot during this period. What I will say is that I did make the movie that I intended to make, and I did have love behind it. And every day we came to work, we'd talk about how this was for the community, the autism community, and for those caregivers of those in the autism community. And we thought we were doing the right thing, and we thought we were making something really special and really loving and giving a voice to a small sub community that doesn't have a voice. And since then, apparently, I've used all the wrong language, and but I was taught by some factions of the community that this is the language they prefer, and other people are saying, stop saying that and say this. And then but other communities are saying, no, don't say that. That's offensive to us. You've got to say it like this. And now, I am actually kind of a little bit afraid to talk now.
Well, what I have to say is that the role that Maddie Ziegler plays in this movie is quite an endeavor. Did she say yes straight away when you told her what it was going to be about? Was she a little bit?
She was scared. She was scared, but she was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then she came the very first rehearsal we had with Kate. She arrived early, and I could see something was wrong. And I said, are you okay, honey? And she started to cry. And she said, I'm really scared. I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to make fun of them. And that I'm trying to make fun of anyone on the spectrum. I really want to do a good job, and I want to be respectful and represent this small community well. And she's a perfectionist. She wanted to do it perfectly. And I gave her a cuddle, and I said, like, I'll do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen. And I said, you'll have final cut. We'll make sure we cut anything where you think that might, that you're overacting or underacting or whatever you want. I wanted to make her feel comfortable. And I said, I promise I won't let that happen. And then I realized I can't protect her from that. It's happened. And gratefully people are, holding me responsible and not her. And I much prefer that because I am responsible. She isn't responsible. I am responsible. And so I'm grateful that she hasn't gotten much flack. And I hope she doesn't, because she did such an incredible job, and she did it with such sensitivity and with such good intention. And when we got the results back from my favorite day of the last 5 years was when we got the results back from the Child Mind Institute of New York. And they had given her 100% rating on her representation of someone nonverbal on the spectrum. And we were all so proud. We felt so proud that she'd done it such justice, and that this here was a community and an audience of people in the community and their caregivers who gave her 100% and who loved the movie. So we really thought it was going to be well received.
Yeah. And what about Kate Hudson, that casting choice? Did you have her in mind all along?
No, but I did hear her, like, just it was on the news or something. I heard her. She'd posted an Instagram post of her singing at a Christmas party, and I didn't realize she could sing. I knew she had been a dancer, and she was really fit and fitness oriented, and I knew that she could act, and that she'd been typecast, and that she could probably use like a Nicolas Cage adaptation makeover, and I thought, well, that would be fun. And so I asked her. I actually heard her sing at a friend's party. That was like, people get up and sing at it's actually Tom Hanks' party. Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson, they throw a party and they just invite their friends, and they just have a pianist and a microphone, and everybody just sings, and it's really fun. But of course, Kate was scared shitless because she realized it was kind of an audition, because we'd already had our lunch meeting, and she was there, and everyone was like going, go on, sing. And and she did Rihanna's Stay, and it was really phenomenal. And I liked her voice better than I liked anyone else's. You got to contend with a lot of this sort of Broadway, these Broadway style singing in the business, and it's I detest that style of singing. And I also don't like musicals. So I was surprised that I was making one. And I knew I had to make it a musical that I would like. And she just had the best voice and she was best suited for the role. I said, would you shave your head? And she said, yes. And I said, you've got it. Leslie Odom Jr., I tweeted, I said, hey, do you want to be the lead male in my movie? And he's just wrote back, yeah, let's have lunch tomorrow. So
fabulous. It worked out.
Yeah, I cast most of the movie from like social media.
Interesting. Is Twitter your favorite?
Well, I only allow myself to have Twitter because otherwise I would never do anything. I would just be on Instagram forever. I'd be in the hospital having all of my vertebrae fused together from looking down. So I can't do Instagram. It's too addictive, as it's designed to be. And Twitter, I jump in and out on every now and again. Yeah, because I'm a bit of a granny.
Well, actually, you are a grandma now, right?
Because true. I'm a granny.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I'm bringing the grey wig.
And speaking of that, Sia, I mean, that part of your life, for me, it's incredible. That journey of always wanting to be a mom, then you don't get to be a biological mom, but then you adopt these 2 18-year-old boys. How has that changed you inside? Or has it done something to you? Or was it meant to be? How would you expand on that?
I think I was changed because I really took my role as Maddie's mother, bonus mother. Really, I do take that role very seriously. I think that the first change happened with my, subconscious adopting of her. I think that was, I realized my heart could never love anyone more, there was no one I wanted to protect more. I would stand and, I'm like, even when we have loads of security around, I'm like around, hypervigilant around her and very protective. And I think that she was the beginning of my realization that I had a lot of love to still give, and that I didn't think I really wanted children anymore. I think that I had always desperately wanted children. And then I realized, or a child or a baby and then I think I realized through a lot of my therapy and work that, I was the baby that I'd been wanting to look after. And once I started that work of looking after my own traumas and inner child and my own baby, so cheesy, but my own baby, I the longing to be a mother to a biological child or a young child, it completely dissipated. And I realized that I have enough love and I have enough resources to actually be of assistance to the less likely to be adopted. And that's why I decided to take my boys, because, and both of them have told me, nobody ever adopts 18-year-olds. Nobody ever. We never thought we'd ever have a mummy, ever. And
how is it going? The bond?
It's profound and hard. It's really, really hard because, I love them so much. We bond, and then their trauma comes back to haunt them, and things, I guess it's much, much more complicated than I ever thought it would be. It's their lives, so it's not really for me to talk about, but all I can say is that my experience of it is that it's much, much harder than I ever thought it would be. And I was on some trip, like it was going to be like Annie. I was Daddy $4. And I'm such a lunatic fantasist because these are real human boys who've been, abused and lived in up to 28 homes each in their 18 lives, and never had anyone love them from the heart. And so I'm the first person who's ever loved them from the heart, is what they've told me. And, and that's what I just have to keep trying to do, even if their conditioning keeps coming back to kick us all in the butt. I just got to stay with it, keep going.
Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful thing you did. And now you became a grandma. Is that something that I'm sure were you expecting that or not at all?
I wasn't, but I realized also that wasn't my news to tell. So I don't talk about it anymore, because I was like, whoops, a daisy. Because I realize I'm really an open book, but I realize it's not my place to reveal news like that about, for my children, to the public. They want people to know things they can let me know.
Absolutely. And so Sia, I mean, your life has been, it's when you talk about it, it seems as if you have lived 20 lives in one.
I do feel that way.
I know, I can imagine. I mean, I know we could talk much more and you could tell me much more. I'm sure you have so much more that you have experienced that we haven't tackled on. But at some point, and now, you became a baller. And you can your success is so big that you just can practically buy whatever you want and do whatever you want and allow yourself to do certain things that the conventionality of people cannot. How does that feel to
it's
after
awesome.
all those, right? I can imagine.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But when you does your brain start working differently when you achieve that point?
Basically, you forget all the time. So you forget you're famous and you forget you're rich. You feel like exactly the person you were for the first 30 years of your life or whatever. I think anyone that is famous and rich would tell you that. I mean, maybe not, but I always forget. The only thing that reminds me is that I just moved into a new house, and it's the most beautiful house I've ever had. I built it, I designed it, and it's a reminder every day. It's emblematic of what I've done for the last 23 years. And so now there's no denying it. I can't deny it because when I look around, I see it in every light switch, in every lampshade, but,
yeah.
But it's rad. He calls it panda money, when like you're so rich you could afford to buy a panda, which is so disgusting. But that's just a joke between us, because obviously none of us would ever buy a panda. But what's great about it for me is it just allows me to now make other people's dreams come true. It allows me to be generous. It allows me to give a lot to charity. It allows me to give a lot to people in need. There's only so much you can spend in one lifetime. I don't spend money on fancy shoes or fancy handbags and, Dolce & Gabbana, and they send me all my clothes. So I don't need to buy anything. So all my money goes towards my salaries of the people that work for me, and like food, and my kids, therapy and recovery, and my own therapy and recovery, and then I get to give it all away to other people. What's left over, and that's awesome.
So I bet. But at that level of life, is there a wish that you still haven't fulfilled that you still want to fulfill?
No. Yeah,
everything is done.
Yeah, that was what happened. As soon as IMAX decided to put the movie out on the big screen, that was my last dream, was that the movie would make it to the big screen and that it would be well received And, you know, obviously the last part hasn't necessarily happened yet. It's been well received by you guys, but not everyone's seen it yet. But the people that have seen it have been so nice about it, that I hope that the rest of the world feels just the way you guys do. And it was the last thing. I felt compelled to make this movie. I don't feel compelled to ever make another movie. Now my compulsion is to ask Maddie, what do you want to do next? And then create a vehicle for her to do that, you know? Or, you know, like, you know, I just give my friends opportunities that they may not otherwise have or have been able to have.
And Sia, how would you define fame? After all you have been through, how would you define it?
As toxic and dangerous and a disease.
Why?
Because I think it kills people. And not everybody, but I think that I don't think that I don't think it helps anybody psychologically. Unless they're like already so damaged that it's like the only thing keeping them alive, you know, which is, you know, possible. But I think, you know, it's, you know, you see even, I mean, what a reference, but Justin Bieber, you know, he started to feel like an object, like an animal in the zoo. And I think that is the danger of fame, is that you lose yourself. You just become, people just want to put you in a selfie with themselves. They don't even care. They don't see you as a human being. That, you know, and it's a really interesting and fascinating, you know, 9 out of 10 children say they want it when they grow up. When they're asked, children in 7th grade, when they're asked what they want to be when they grow up, they say famous. They don't say what for. And you might say, what for, or what would you like to? And you know, and I believe it's a disease because it's spreading. And more and more people are able to be famous these days with social media. But I think also it's going to lose its resonance, because I think with technology, soon everyone will be famous. Everyone can be famous. And I wonder what will happen. I have no idea how I guess like good art will rise to the top, just like it always has.
Exactly. And as a protector of Maddie, how do you help her navigate fame according to your experience? How do you advise her?
Well, I listen, but I ask her a lot of questions. I ask her about what she wants, and then I give her my best, you know, opinion on how that could happen, how we could make that happen, or whether she should take a role or not take a role, or you know, even, you know, to the point, you know, I've said to her, don't take that role. Like, because of it, I think it will, and don't do that show. It's going to dilute your credibility, or, and then also saying things like, don't get on that plane to Harvey Weinstein's apartment. You know, like those are ways that I feel like I've effectively helped her, because she wants to have a long-term career in this industry. And I know that that's very difficult, not when you're as successful already and grounded and talented as her. She could do whatever she wanted, but it just depends on which way she wants to go. So, you know, I hope for her one of those kind of long careers where she's a Kate Blanchett one day, you know, and so that's just, making good choices. And she already makes good choices. Only occasionally do I have to be like, oh my God, oh, you don't know that person is dangerous. Oh, you don't know that person is like, you're adding all the value to that project and that person is actually devaluing you. So those are the ways that I try to help her.
And Sia, I know you've said you have fulfilled every wish, especially now with this movie coming out.
Yeah.
But I would like to ask you, are there any plans on the table artistically? What's going to happen next for you?
I've already got a couple of albums finished. So we're just basically going to put them out over the next few years. And I'm going to work on just relaxing and my PTSD and my sobriety and my health and trying to make my friends' dreams come true. And occasionally, of course, I'll keep writing music because I like doing that. It's fun. And I'll keep pitching it to artists and might end up with those on other albums. I might end up with more albums by accident. But yeah, I think that me being around will be much, much more on a streaming level, not on a touring level, you know? Like I think I'm going to certainly take the easiest route to getting my music to my fans and with I guess the highest impact, lowest output.
Good. That's a good line to end our conversation. Thank you so much, Sia. I predict a lot of good things still happening to you. And thank you so much for this time.
Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you for listening to the HFPA in Conversation. This episode was hosted by Barbara de Olivero Pinto. Our show is executive produced by Kirpi Wimonen, produced by Paula Abujaudi and Matt Smith. Editing by Matt Smith. Theme song by Cameron Chambers for the HFPA. Logo by Jason Little for the HFPA. The HFPA in Conversation is a production of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, which owns all rights to the recording.